the most of now. And I tried to leave that unforgiving minute as completely as possible. I know that sounds Pollyanna. I don't really mean for it to. I really do think seriously that the way to go forward and to be happy is to live in the present. You can't even live too much in the future. I think you have to live your life as though this is the last day you have, and I think you also have to live your life as though you may live forever, in the sense that you at least plan for the future and that you're optimistic in going forward. I think that's very important. I think one of the most underrated traits of being a good lawyer or a good paralegal is the character trait of kindness. This isn't something I say just to help you in your personal life, but this is going to help you in your legal career also. Kindness. People don't necessarily anticipate that lawyers, particularly litigators for goodness sakes, are going to be kind. But yet, if you go to court tomorrow or the next day and you are that way, it may surprise people. It may surprise the court. But everyone notices it. Judges notice it. Clerks, bailiffs, jurors, witnesses, everyone notices. It will help you so much. Kindness is so important, I think, at least in this state, to be an extremely effective and good lawyer. Be nice to people. You never know when that will get you a new case or a new client. Let the past go. Live in the present. Don't hold grudges. Own your mistakes. Show up and be on time. These simple concepts, so easy to say, none of you probably would disagree with any of them, but yet they are sometimes hard to do. One of the ways I think you'd be so much happier, I would have been so much happier, is if I had not overpromised. I know people say, well, I want to underpromise and overdeliver. Yet we must be realistic and recognize that for lawyers who are trying to get new clients, to pay the fees, to become clients for their firm so they can make their overhead and make money, there's a temptation to market oneself, which is okay, it's approved by the bar, and to have a website that says great things. You know, I have never seen a website in my life for a law firm, and I've looked at lots of them, even my own website. I don't tell you the things I cannot do, I only tell you the things that I can do. And law firms, you know, do the same thing. Billboards do the same things. Television and radio advertising does the same thing. The thing is, when someone comes to your office and they ask you about taking a matter, how do you handle that? Do you fluff your wares too much? Do you puff yourself up too much? I know that no one can promise a result. You just can't do that. But do you give too much hope that's not realistic? Just keep this in mind. If you keep realism with your clients, if you keep them informed as to what's going on every step of the way, if you let them know the bad news as well as the good news, if you can still give them some hope in doing that, then I think you're well on your way to having a happy and successful private law practice. One of the dangers and one of the risks, particularly I think to young people, is the danger of trying to oversell yourself to make a living and to make a go of it, and so hanging out the shingle works. The same is true with perhaps young associates who join law firms and have to work many hours for many years to even be considered making the rank of partnership or becoming a partner in a law firm. There's this danger of overpromising and taking cases that one should not take, that one's not prepared to take, that one doesn't know how to handle a certain thing. One of the things that got me into difficulty, even as long as I had practiced law, which was over 20 years at the time, I took a couple of cases that, dear Lord, I had no business taking. I should have left them the heck alone. And if I had left them the heck alone, I still, might be practicing law today. I don't know. But it sure would have been a better shot at it than what I did. Don't over-promise. Clients will love you for that. That's a way to build trust. If you tell a client the realistic truth, then if you have good news to tell later, they are more apt to trust and accept and believe you. If, on the other hand, you have puffed it up from the beginning and you have to let them down, you have created an enormous problem of trust and communication with you and the client. The truth is, the State Bar will say one of the major causes of complaints that they have with lawyers across the state is the failure to properly communicate with clients. And the shorthand way of looking at this is that's not returning telephone calls. And certainly that is a problem, not returning phone calls. That certainly is a problem. But also the failure to communicate, to let them know. How many times have I heard that the paralegals have a better relationship oftentimes with the client because they talk the lingo, the language of the client better than the lawyer, who is harder to get and harder to understand. Make it one of your goals to learn how to communicate well with your clients, to tell them everything, to respond to their questions, to be available. If they send you an email, respond to it. The time, date stamp on your email response can help you just as much as it can hurt you. But to do so, be aware that the best thing you have going for you is your word and your ability to say and do what you said you were going to do. And if you do that, you're likely not to have any trouble, and you're likely to be more at peace with yourself. One of the things that I think is the most fun thing in the world and the most passionate thing you can do is to make a list of things to do and cross them off during the day. If you've never kept a list, it's one of the funnest things you can possibly do. Just to make a list, write things down, and then just cross them off. I do that all the time. Even if the first thing on the list is make list. It can be the most basic things in the world, but there's nothing that will make you feel as good as doing that. Always, it will keep you organized. My mom once told me that I was the least organized person she'd ever seen in her life. And so I've made up my mind in the latest years to try to get more organized. It doesn't come naturally to me. I'm not a natural organized person. But I have learned, if I keep things where they're supposed to be and do that on a regular basis, life is so much simpler. I don't get behind as much. I don't get frustrated as much. I don't lose time trying to look for stuff. I keep on top of things, and I respond as quickly as I can to requests and letters and emails and phone calls. Try to figure out what is a weakness that you have. Just pick one. I have lots, but just pick one weakness. And try hard to turn it into a strength, into an asset. Try to, for example, figure out what it is that you like to do least, and learn, if you can't learn how to like it a lot, to do it early in the day, to get it off the table, to get it away from you, so that you don't have to think about it and doesn't have to rattle around in your brain and your head, the rest of the day. Wouldn't that be something? If by mid-morning or late morning or by noon at lunchtime, you've already done for that day the thing that you had regretted and dreaded doing most. It's a key thing in a way to be happy. I promise you that will work. You know, I have to tell you that I always want my seminars to be optimistic. I've learned this the hard way, frankly. I've oftentimes talked about my story and my past, and I've done so in different ways, and sometimes I've made the mistake of getting away from what was really the purpose of what I was trying to say. And in my desire to talk frankly about things that you can do wrong, I've made it depressing. And one time, many months ago, a paralegal said, "Jim, I've been to your seminar several times. I didn't like the way that you made me feel because I was depressed when I left." And so I went to school. At first it bothered me that he said that, then I decided that he was right. So one of the things I want to say to you in this particular tape is I want this to be optimistic. I want it to be forward-thinking. I want you to think that there is nothing you cannot accomplish. There is no case that you cannot do well in, or no client you cannot make happy. If anybody can, you can. I want you to think that all things are possible, and that in order for you to do that, you have to not ever quit. You simply cannot give up. You just can't. When people are doubting you, when people are criticizing you, when people are questioning you, the thing that you need to do, I think, at least I had to do, was dig deeper and try harder. And listen to what advice is, and if it's good advice, take it and learn from it. But to be persistent, to not quit, to keep on trying, to be optimistic, to think that there is a reason you can accomplish things that you would, seek to want to accomplish. Actually, when I said to you about David Brooks' column on passion, and he said, "What would you do if you were not afraid to fail?" A better way, and what he really said, is, what would you do if you were not afraid? One of the things that I did not do when I practiced law, though I had been encouraged to do that, was to seek counseling. And I called a psychologist, and that person was no longer taking new patients. So I thought that was an act of God, a word from God, and I didn't need to go see anybody, so I didn't try anymore. I would later see Dr. Jean Spalding in Durham for 2.5 to 3 years, a psychiatrist, and I would see her a lot, maybe sometimes as often as once a week during different periods of that time. I would be hospitalized in Duke Hospital for a time. I have to tell you, I did not want initially to go see her for lots of reasons. I didn't think I needed to, I didn't want to, I thought it would be painful. But essentially I was afraid. I was afraid of two things. I was afraid of opening up to another person and telling that person my innermost thoughts and fears and feelings. I was also afraid of what other people might think. Just afraid of what people might think. I now think that was just silly on my part. What difference does it make? What difference does it possibly make what someone else thinks if by seeking counseling you're making your life better, if you're making your life happier? I didn't always tell Dr. Spalding the truth at first when she asked me penetrating questions that were personal in nature. Sometimes it would take me weeks to talk to her and answer her questions. I remember one time she had a legal pad out and I said, Jean, why are you not taking any notes? And she responded back to me, she said, Jim, I will when you start to tell me the truth again. So I said, well, okay, I understand that. I get that. And so I did. It's the best thing I ever did. But I was afraid to go see her at first. And to some degree, to a large degree actually, I was able to start my life over and refine the passion that I have now in my life because I got past the fear to see her. But I have to tell you, your clients may have that fear. I'm not really talking about you right now, though it may apply to you. I'm also talking about your clients. They may need counseling. You know, anytime someone comes to you and they have been sued civilly, or they're facing bankruptcy, or they are in the midst of a divorce and separation, and you have issues of payments of money or visitation or custody of children, who is going to live in the house or whether it's going to have to be sold, or whether or not you've gotten into some legal difficulty, criminal legal difficulty, something like that for goodness sakes, and where your freedom is at jeopardy. Your client is afraid. Clients need for you to be strong. They need for you to have some courage. They need for you to have some passion. And they need for you to be able to counsel them not only on the A's and B's and C's of their case, but to give them a pat on the back. So encouragement that they are doing the right thing. And that more than that you will be with them, as Bill Clinton once said, until the last dog dies. That you won't go away. That's one of the best ways I know to build trust. And building trust with a client will make you happier. It will make you better than how you are now. And you can do this by being available, by responding to them. And when they come to see you the next time, whether it's a new client or one you've already seen and have now, an existing client, let them know, even if by words, if not by deeds, that you are on their side. Jean Spalding once patted my wrist and said to me, one of the first visits I ever had with her, she said, Jim, I just want you to know, I want to be on your side. I want to help you. I believe those are simply magic words. She also said, whatever you tell me, I will promise you I will not tell anyone. It will be just between you and me. And I won't tell anybody else. I won't even tell your attorneys unless you say it is okay for me to do so. And that was the building of trust with Jean Spalding. And that was very important to me. And I would say to you, think that through and do that yourself. This will make you have a better and happier relationship with your client. They will love you for it. I promise you they will, because that's the way I got with Dr. Spalding. And even to this day, if I had to go speak to some one person and tell that person the whole story of myself, she is perhaps the one person I would go to first. I might talk to others, but she is someone I would go to first. Try to be the person your clients would come to first. You do that through building trust, communicating with them, being kind, looking forward, being optimistic, being empathetic, showing up and being on time, that sort of thing. There is one other thought that's so obvious you shouldn't even have to think about it. It is telling the truth. Everybody knows you're supposed to tell the truth. Nobody would disagree with that. I think, at least for me, it is sometimes hard to tell the truth. Particularly when you don't know the consequences of doing that. I would argue to you that's when you get the most points. When I was trying to decide what to do in my own case in the fall of 1993, now about 23 years ago, I was sitting in Wade Smith's law office with Rick Gammon, my other friend and lawyer, and they had told me that the district attorney, whom I knew, did not want to take a plea bargain agreement. He wanted me to plead guilty to every charge there was, open, with no deal, no agreement. We wouldn't even get to select the judge, the trial judge who would hear the case. I didn't want to do that. And then Wade said to me, and Rick said to me, Jim, we don't want you to take a deal. We want you to go in and plead guilty. We want you to throw it all up there and roll the dice. We want you to have the courage to say, I did it. I am responsible. I'm here to be punished. I had never recommended to a single client in all my life as a criminal practitioner or as a DA, a prosecutor, federal prosecutor. I had not seen this done before. Anybody do that? I think it is done from time to time. I'm not the only one. But that's what I did. But I didn't do it easily. It took me about 2 months to come to that conclusion, till maybe a month and a half, but till late November, around Thanksgiving, was when I agreed to do exactly what they suggested. Some people say, well, that's silly. What if it had gone south? Well, if it had gone south, it would have gone south. There wouldn't have been anything I could do about it from a legal point of view. Oh, I could have gotten mad and jumped up and down and yelled and screamed and cried, but it wouldn't have changed anything very much. I can only tell you that when I was sentenced in court, saying I was guilty, saying I was responsible, saying that no one else was to blame, was the truth. And by saying that truth to power, as in the judge, gave me the best chance to have an outcome that would be good. I've long believed that worked for me. And I've long believed that doing that was incredibly helpful. It took, I think, for my lawyers to recommend that for me. Courage on their part, self-confidence on their part. They knew, of course, that the facts were totally against me, that they didn't really have much of a defense. At the same time, it was the right thing to do. I saw the Superior Court judge a couple of years ago, one Sunday, in a restaurant for brunch. And he saw me in the restaurant. He waved at me. I went over and spoke to him. We talked for about 30 seconds. It was a very nice, warm conversation. And we wished each other well. That's about as full circle as I can come. And I think that the same is true with you in your law practice, your legal career, and with your clients, if you are able to do that and tell the truth. It's not easy. And I don't tell you today that all these things I've said to you in this hour that I practice all the time, because that's not true. But hopefully I do some of them some of the time. And I try to do them as often as I can. Years ago, there was an article written also in the New York Times about college students and the fear of being perfect. A freshman in college is not unlike a young lawyer. or a new paralegal starting a law firm. You're frightened, you're scared. Everybody else seems to be smarter or brighter than you are. And this particular young lady, a co-ed, was at Penn State University. And she got there, she'd been on the wait list. Both of her parents had been to Stanford, graduated from there. And they had high hopes from her. And she made a 60 on her first calculus test the first week. She thought that all of her suite mates were prettier than she was, went to more fun parties. Their photographs, even on Instagram, were better. She felt very insecure, very inferior, and that she was failing. And so she decided to kill herself because she wasn't perfect. She was saved because her roommate found the letters that she had already written to her family and friends. And the